Thank you so much, Amy. And thank you, Wayne, for inviting me. And I will also say happy Father's Day to the men out there. Celebrating Father's Day in the rooms and in the fellowship is quite remarkable because I bet a lot of us, weren't that great to our dads, but also to see the men who do recover and take that role and become the fathers they were meant to be is remarkable. Um, it's bittersweet for me. I remember 2 years ago on a Saturday night, I shared in a meeting that is my home group that the rooms gave me hope for my ex-husband, for him to, one day recover. I heard so many stories of men who became the fathers that they wished to be by getting sober. And, that gave me hope that he would recover one day too. And the next day he passed away. So Father's Day is a hard day here. We will be going and visiting him at the grave, but so I have so much love for those fathers who are here today, and I pray for those still suffering that they find their way. So yes, my name is Kimberly and I am an alcoholic. I am up in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, so the west coast of Canada. It's a dreary, rainy day, and but it's still beautiful. The birds are still chirping when I wake up. I like to start my day with my morning meditation, and part of that is a few God questions I ask myself. And it's me talking to God, and it says, hey Kim, are you gonna pray and meditate all day today? And I'm always like, yes, God, I am. And he says, Kim, are you going to be willing to make any and all amends as they come up today? And yes, God, I am. And then, Kim, are you willing to help others today as you go throughout your day? Yes, God, I am. And he says, well, have a good day. And I picked that up from someone a long time ago. And I love to start my day with those three God questions. And then I always sit and meditate about my day. And of course, this is the first thing on my agenda because it is only, 7:59 here. So what a great way to start my day. I don't like to get into huge drunkalog. I've heard them before. You hear them all the time. But I can say I definitely qualify to be here. I started drinking at 16 and I instantly loved it. It made me feel taller, prettier, more confident, more attracted to the opposite sex. And that was a big, big win for me. I had no self-confidence. I had very bad body image issues, and I really was a chameleon in high school. So finding alcohol, was a great, great way for me to feel like I was a somebody, because inside I felt like a nobody. Um, I went through my 20s thinking I was just in my 20s and I was a party girl. I kind of owned that genre of being a party girl, and I was the best party girl I could be, but I never really thought that I had much of a problem, because obviously when you're a party girl, you're surrounded by others who are either the same as you or worse than you. It wasn't until I was a wife and mother that I kind of had an inkling that there was a problem. But I didn't fully comprehend the extent of my problem. I had never tried to stop drinking. I had promised a million times I was never going to do that again because I had drank too much. And I always thought it was situational. Oh, I'm stressed at work. Oh, I've had a rough week. Oh, it's a holiday. I had a bit of a terrible marriage where I was married to an alcoholic. So, I drink and use because of him. So I never really looked at myself. What happened was when I got divorced, it followed me. Why wasn't life getting better when my situations have changed? Why am I still doing these things? I shouldn't be doing this. I'm an adult. I'm no longer in a bad situation. I'm free. But it was that loneliness again. Now I didn't have that identity of being a wife. I didn't have the identity of being a mom because my kids weren't with me all the time. So I was back to being a chameleon. And I really had absolutely zero self-confidence. And so alcohol and drugs were my solution, but I didn't know that. Like I said, I didn't realize that other people didn't drink like me. And I didn't realize that that was one of the symptoms of alcoholism. I would go out on a Friday night to have one glass of wine, and, 4 bottles later and 20 shots later, I'm obliterated and blacked out, sleeping wherever. And I just thought, oh, I didn't eat dinner that day, or I didn't drink enough water in between. And it was only when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous that I realized that that was the earmark signs of me being an alcoholic. All those mornings when I said, I'm never going to do that again, it wasn't me saying, I'm never going to stop. It was, I was going to control how much I drank. But I never was able to. God has a sense of humor in my life, and he's a funny guy, and he likes to watch the best reality TV show, which is the Kim show. So God thought it would be a great idea to let Kim date a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And, there was my solution. I'm going to date a guy that doesn't drink or use drugs. So then I'm not going to drink or use drugs. And, it was going to help me regulate me. But it didn't. I found new ways to do these things. So Sunday afternoons, I would go to Chuck E. Cheese with my kids, because at Chuck E. Cheese, they serve wine and beer. So here I was at a kids' amusement park on a Sunday afternoon, having 2 glasses of wine, slipping into the bathroom to do extracurricular things before driving home chewing on my gum. So I would hide it from him. Of course, I didn't know the signs of relapse because I wasn't in any way familiar with addiction. So a gentleman in Alcoholics Anonymous dating a girl who uses and drinks excessively is kind of a telltale sign that he's not really working his program and he's on his way out of the fellowship. And of course, he relapsed, which was God's way of bringing me into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was a super great codependent girl, so I started going and visiting him at the treatment center because I had to control and help him get through his recovery. And I would start driving the guys to meetings, and I was just going to learn and to listen, and that's how I got to hear my story. And I had that key opened in the door, which was hope. My first meeting, I was asked to share within the first 10 minutes because I was the odd duck out in the room, of course. They had never seen me before, so of course they picked on me. And I said, no, I'm not part of this. He has a problem, not me. Look at him. He's sweating. Look, can't you smell him? And of course, she rolled her eyes and says, okay, honey, whatever. I don't know how she knew, but she knew I meant to be there. 15 minutes later, I heard my story. Someone shared my exact story, and I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm an alcoholic. Like, all of a sudden, all of these things made sense to me. I liken it to a bus crash in the movie where your life flashes before your eyes, and I was just like, oh my gosh, why didn't I see this sooner? And that I thought was my step one. I thought that was my step one. I'm an alcoholic. I get it. This makes sense. But it wasn't. But it did keep me in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it kept me filling a chair. I heard a lot of great things in my first year. Keep coming back, kid. Fake it till you make it. They read that How It Works every time, and I would be sitting there off in a different place. I never really realized that I should probably pay attention when they say how it works, and then they start to explain something. That might have been something I should have paid attention to, but I didn't. I kind of saw the posters at the front of the room, never asked anybody about them. And I just said, I need a home group. I'm going to make this my home group. You keep saying, keep coming back, get a home group, get a sponsor, do the steps, all of these great things. But nobody ever really said, hey, kid, do you know what we're doing here? Do you know what's going on here? And I just thought I knew what was going on. So I kept coming back to my home group. I kept sitting in my chair. I would arrive 5 minutes before the meeting began, and I would leave immediately when the meeting ended. I wouldn't even put my chair away because they were too hard to stack. So I was like, this is just nonsense. It's frustrating. I leave. But I stayed sober. I didn't have a big book. I didn't have a sponsor. I did not have a solution in my life. But I stayed sober. So I thought I was doing the right thing. Life looked really good. These promises that they read kind of made sense and it sounded good. Financial insecurity. Yeah, my job's going good. I seem to be like doing better in life. So I thought I was doing this right, but I wasn't. I was barely a member of the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. And at 14 months sober, my partner relapsed. And when he relapsed, I got mad. I was like, this doesn't work. Screw this. I did this for him, not for me, blah, 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 blah. And I got in my car and I was on my way to go to the bar to drink. I was like, that's enough of this. This is crap. And my phone rang. My phone rang. Nobody ever called me because I didn't have friends, but my phone rang. And it was somebody from that home group. Hey, kid, we haven't seen you around in a while. Ken's taking 27 years tomorrow. Are you going to come? And I had loved Ken. And I started to cry. And this is one of my AA grandpas. What's wrong, kid? I was like, I'm on my way to the bar. He's like, wow, there's the defense against the first drink. Alcoholics Anonymous just called you. God's intervening in your life. And he said, get yourself to a meeting because that's what you do. And I was like, okay. So that week I went to a meeting every day. And at the 5th meeting, I sat behind this bubbly girl that I could not stand. Couldn't stand her to save my life. And she's like, hey, how are you? My name's so-and-so. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's so frigging happy, right? But I didn't do that. I said, hey, my name's Kim. I said, I don't know what I'm doing. Like my life is falling apart. And I started to cry. And I said, I need help. I need to know what these stupid tools you guys keep talking about in the stupid spiritual toolkit. What is it? Can you help me? And that was a Sunday night. And she said, yeah, absolutely. We've got a great step group starting at my sponsor's house on Thursday night. You should come. Oh, no, I do not want to come hang out with you and your sponsor and a bunch of other people like you. But I want whatever this toolbox is, right? Like I want to know what these tools are. So I agreed and I gave her my phone number. I saw her again 2 days later at a meeting to tide me over until I went to this house on Thursday night. And of course, I wake up and I'm dreading it all day. I have to go to this lady's house. I don't want to go, looking for every excuse. I don't have a babysitter, this, that, and the other thing. But I'm like, I don't have a babysitter. I can't come. Bring your kids. My kids play downstairs. I'm like, oh, freak. These people have all the answers. So I sucked it up and I went to this lady's house just because I couldn't get out of it. They had a solution for every excuse I gave to them. And so I went and I started to do a set of steps. And they're like, well, do you have a sponsor? You need a sponsor because it's really good to have a sponsor when you're going through this. I was like, well, I had this lady. She was my temporary sponsor. I think I called her twice in the past 18 months. And they're like, oh, no, you need a sponsor. Pick someone that's got what you have. And I'm looking around the room and I'm like, none of you have anything I want. Like, this is not my jam, right? And so I picked the one that they liked the most. She seemed to be the leader of the pack. And I said, will you be my sponsor and just kind of help me out? And she's like, yeah, absolutely. And so I proceeded to do my first set of steps. And I thought I was done. I thought I had a gold star. I thought I did amazing. And off I went to help people. I got a big, strong AA boyfriend and I was working my program and I was part of life and everything was getting shiny again. I took a 2-year cake. Lots of people came, said amazingly nice things about me. And my gold star kept getting shined up, right? Like, just come on over here, tell me how great I am and shine my gold star. There was no humility. There was no real God in my life. And anytime I faced a problem, it was call your sponsor or pray. Well, my sponsor didn't really answer the phone a lot. I didn't have a great relationship with her. And praying seemed to get me nowhere. Until someone asked me, well, how do you pray? And I was like, I don't really know. She's like, well, if you don't know how you're praying, how are you praying every time we tell you to pray? And I'm like, I don't know. And so she showed me a few things in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And she goes, well, this one's the one I like the most. It's on page 13. And it's when in doubt, sit quietly and ask for strength and direction. And I was like, I don't know, lady. Like, that doesn't work for me. I don't get anything back. Like, I'm a real black and white person. I work in accounting. Like, you really need to give me a list or some very clear instructions. Like, this ambiguous stuff doesn't work for me. I don't know. And so she says, well, why don't you pray for clear, concise direction? I'm like, ha, okay, whatever, just try it. So there I had a situation going on in my life, and I really needed an answer, and no one seemed to be able to give me an answer that was sufficient. So I started out and I said, okay, fine. What do I got to lose? So I started praying, and I was like, okay, clear, concise direction. God, can you please give me some clear, concise direction? Give me a clear sign. And I've never seen a sign. I've never got any messages from God before. And he sent me the most clear, concise sign one could ever have imagined. And I was like, holy shoot, it works. And I immediately got in my car and I called this girl. I'm like, that works. What more do you know about prayer? See, because for me, if something clicks, I need more. I want to know more. And so she's like, what's in the big book? There's lots of stuff like that. And so I set off on this little bit of a quest to find more about the big book. And I started going to different meetings that talked like this girl talked. Because the other people I had seen don't talk like this girl. They talked a lot about their dead cats, or, they're dead this or they're dead that, and how they're going to make amends. And they talked about all of these problems in their lives. And I was like, okay, I had never heard anybody talk like this woman had talked. She talked about God all the time. She talked about how all these prayers and messages. And so I wanted more of that. So I went on this little bit of a quest in Alcoholics Anonymous to see where this girl had gotten this information. And it brought me to a meeting. And I went to that meeting on a Saturday night, and I was trying to show someone else what I'm like, you got to come check this out. Maybe it will help you. Because like me, he could not find someone that had what he wanted. And then we found this in this group, people that were talking differently and had something we wanted. And I walked into this church, and I felt like I'd been there before. And I sat down, and I'm like, I've been here before. It was a meeting I had been to in my first week in Alcoholics Anonymous. It was a meeting I had been to that I had heard things that stuck with me to the point that 2 years later, I remembered the face and the story of the person from that room. But what had happened is I had walked away thinking of all the differences in that room. This room was in a really rough area of East Van, and a lot of the people there came from the wrong side of the tracks. They were hardcore drug users. They had been homeless. They had that type of past. And for me, I come from this suburb. I come from this middle class thing. So I left that room and never went back because of the differences I saw that first day. Even though the similarities that I had heard had hit apart with me, that I remembered those people 2 years later. I remembered the yellow dingy paint on the wall. And so I sat and I listened. And I heard the message of the solution of Alcoholics Anonymous as found in the big book that brought us to this relationship with a God. And I was like, what are these people talking about? Well, they were talking about Alcoholics Anonymous. And they were talking about the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And everywhere I had been before in those 2 years didn't talk about this. And they didn't talk about this. And so I started to listen. And like I said, that is where I got to on that Saturday night when I got to the podium and I shared about my hope I had for my children's father. And then the very next day he passed away. That day he passed away, I called that girl that I had remembered from the wrong side of the track, who I had nothing in common with other than she spoke my language, the language of the heart. I had called my sponsor at 5 a.m. She didn't answer. My social suburban recovery sponsor didn't answer her phone. So I called this girl who I had nothing in common with, and I said, this is what happened, and I'm falling apart, and I don't know what to do. And she said one line. She said, sometimes, Kim, God brings people home because he can't help them on earth. She brought God into the problem. My problem was that my husband had passed away and I was going to have to wake my children up and tell them. And she brought God into it. She connected me to source. She didn't give me her opinion. She didn't give me her experience. She said, here's God. And she hung up. And that's all I needed that day. And I realized that there was a different way. Calling my sponsor didn't work. Sitting in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous didn't work. something about what was in this book worked. So I called her back later that day and I said, you know those things you're talking about? She's like, yeah, a rapid set of steps. I'm like, yeah. She goes, you want to do it? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, well, when do you want to start? I'm like, right away. So in the 2 weeks after my ex-husband had passed away, while we were getting ready to bury him and do all of these things, I did a full set of steps through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I could have sat in my self-pity. I could have sat in all my stress and worries, but I didn't. I got into the book of Alcoholics Anonymous and I was taken through it word by word. And it came alive. And I had the most amazing spiritual experience you could ever imagine. And it brought God into my life and into my heart. And it brought me a program of recovery that is a design for living, that is able to help me manage each and everything. Whereas before that, what was I told to do? Come to meetings, get a sponsor, work your steps, blah, 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 blah. But that didn't work. I found my spiritual toolkit. It has the answer to absolutely anything I need. Not once does it say call your sponsor. Nowhere in this book does it say call your sponsor. But 3 times it does say sit quietly when in doubt and ask for strength and direction. 3 times. It's on page 13, it's on page 87, and it's on page 79. Sit quietly when in doubt and ask for strength and direction. So guess what? I don't call my sponsor when I'm in doubt. I sit quietly, I connect to God, and I get strength and direction. And it works. It also talked about God, which I was really hesitant to do, but there's some really good descriptions of God in this book. If you have trouble with God, you can go to page 10. And on page 10 is my favorite definition of what God is. And he is a God personal to me who was love, superhuman, strength, and direction. There's that strength and direction again. Weird, but it works. And then if you turn the page on page 12, there's a whole bunch of names you can use for God if you don't like the word God. I like Czar of the Heavens. That's actually one of my favorites that's in here. But there's tons and tons of stuff in here. There's a practical solution for every one of my problems in this book. How to get through a global pandemic. It's actually in here. It's on page 15 where it says, we perfect and enlarge our spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others. And it says we will survive certain trials and low spots ahead. Well, a global pandemic is a low spot and a trial. So the answer to how to solve a global pandemic with God is in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. There is nothing that's not in this book. Relationship problems, it doesn't say call your sponsor. It does say on page 69 and 70 that I can talk to God. I can review it. Am I being selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate? And it says I subject each relationship to the test. Is it selfish or not? And then it again brings me to God on page 70, where it says we ask for guidance in each questionable situation, for sanity, and again, the strength to do the right thing. So it's why am I calling my sponsor for her experience? Well, it does say that in here. It says counsel with other persons is often desirable, and it's to bring me to God so I can apply what's in this book to my situation. I always love it when I hear people, they're like, oh, I'm having trouble in my relationship, and they've asked 10 people who are similar situations. And, my sponsor has had 4 failed Alcoholics Anonymous relationships, and now she's in a very successful relationship. So guess who I'm going to go to for counsel? Because she's actually applied this program into her life and is able to give me her practical experience. And so the key to life I found was in this book. And I'm able to, apply the principles and the guidance in this book to every day of my life. We all interpret things differently, and, for certain things, they are suggestions, and others, they're clear-cut directions. it's just a suggestion. Well, no. These are actually clear-cut directions on how to recover. But there are some suggestions mixed in. My favorite is that, step 11, the suggestions for the nightly inventory and the morning meditation. That in practical application doesn't work in my life. So I practice step 10 because I need to pause throughout the day and check myself because I get off track. And if I waited until the end of the day to do my nightly reflection on my whole day, will have missed 6 things I did that I needed to correct right away. So I'm constantly in counsel with God to keep me on the right track. And the key to my success, and I'm done because I'm running a minute over, is working with others. Working with others is the highlight of my life. I am an agent for God. I carry this message as far and as wide as I can. And that is how I've been able to grow spiritually. And that is what's kept me sober and in the middle of the herd, as people so affectionately said. And in this global pandemic, I refer back to page 15, where when I first went through my set of steps and got that gold star that we kept shining up with all the compliments, I thought I was a one and done. I thought I did my steps and I was good. But I had failed to perfect and enlarge my spiritual life by self-sacrifice and working with others. So each and every day I wake up and I ask God, how can I serve you today? How can I help other people? And that's the way I'm directed in life. And as a result, I'm able to get through situations. I intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle me, to the point where I'm like, what is that? Like, who said that? Because the things that come out of my book are from the pages of Alcoholics Anonymous, not from the brain of Kim. Because the brain of Kim got me this seat in this room. But the pages of this book are the guide to my life and how to get through with strength and direction, which is repeated over and over in the book. So thank you so much for having me. I hope something I said helped someone.